time being, it's impossible for me to take my family back to the UK safely. Well, for a start, the only time that I've come back to the UK is...
For years, the palace insisted there was no secret confrontation, no final reckoning, and no private moment when Prince William and Prince Harry said what they truly felt. But one palace insider has now broken that silence. Behind a locked door at Windsor, the brothers met without wives, cameras, or advisors, and the conversation ended with Harry leaving through a private corridor while William remained inside, staring at an unopened family photograph. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The closed door changed everything. 2 days after Queen Elizabeth II's funeral, William and Harry entered a secluded room inside Windsor Castle for their last meeting. Windsor Castle, one of the monarch's residences, carried more than ceremonial weight. Their grandmother had just been buried, Harry was preparing to return to California, and both men knew another public rupture could make their family wound permanent. William arrived first. The future king stopped with one hand on the brass handle, carrying years of anger over private pain that had escaped into interviews and public accounts. He rehearsed his opening sentence, yet when his younger brother appeared, even that preparation seemed fragile. Harry approached expecting recognition, perhaps an apology, and opened his arms in an attempt at an embrace. The prince did not step forward. Hope vanished from the younger man's face, replaced by humiliation he could barely conceal. A documented account later given by a palace aide recorded what followed. William placed a sealed folder between them. It contained a timeline of confidential conversations that household officials believed had later resurfaced outside palace walls. The royal household, the advisors and staff supporting the sovereign and family members, had assembled the record because trust was no longer personal. It had become a matter of survival. Harry refused to touch it. He asked whether his brother had brought him there to listen or accuse him. William answered that listening had become impossible when every vulnerable exchange carried the fear of future exposure. The younger prince demanded a choice: the institution or his brother. The heir's reply came without anger, making it more brutal. Harry, he said, had already forced that choice by making family trust impossible. Neither man shouted. Silence carried the violence. The meeting did not collapse in one explosion. It broke around a sentence William had chosen before entering the room. Born from grief, resentment, and memories, neither brother had escaped. To understand why those words struck Harry with such force, the two princes must first be seen not as royal rivals, but as brothers who had once believed nothing could ever divide them. They walked behind the same coffin, faced the same cameras, and learned to hide pain beneath royal discipline. Yet the tragedy that once united them eventually taught them opposite lessons. William clung to duty as protection. Harry came to see that same duty as a prison, and each brother began quietly blaming the other for choosing the wrong escape. William learned early that control could shield him from chaos. As the future king, the man expected to inherit the throne and lead the monarchy, he trained himself to measure every word, conceal every wound, and protect the crown even when doing so hurt him personally. He believed restraint guarded Catherine, their children, and the memory of Diana from becoming public property once again. Harry moved in the opposite direction. The younger prince came to believe that silence had allowed pain to deepen, especially when Meghan entered royal life and faced pressure he felt the family refused to confront. Distance from Britain, public honesty, and a new life in California became his chosen defenses, not only for his wife, but for their children as well. William saw danger in that decision. One morning, he noticed a newspaper carrying another explosive family headline lying open inside his private office. Prince George approached before the prince quickly folded it shut and pushed it beneath a stack of papers. The father's fear was immediate. George, Charlotte, and Louis could one day inherit wounds they had never created. Harry carried a different fear. While preparing for the Windsor meeting, he opened an old message from his brother and read it twice. The wording was formal, distant, almost official. Anger rose, because the man who had once understood him without explanation now communicated like a palace representative. A documented account, later provided by the same household source, revealed the cruel misunderstanding beneath their reunion. William believed Harry had asked for the meeting. Harry believed William had requested it. Each arrived expecting the other to begin with regret, and each interpreted the opening silence as pride. Charles had quietly encouraged the conversation, but refused to enter the room himself. The king feared his presence would turn a personal reckoning into a constitutional negotiation, a discussion shaped by royal roles, duties, and the future stability of the crown, rather than the pain between two sons. Yet beneath those false expectations waited something far more dangerous. William had not forgotten one earlier encounter, nor the warning Harry had delivered during it. That memory would become the invisible third presence in the Windsor room, because the final meeting had truly begun months earlier during a confrontation neither brother could forget. Every family rupture has a moment that later feels like destiny, a sentence, a gesture, or a door closing before anyone understands what has been lost. For William and Harry, that moment came during a winter gathering at Sandringham. It was not a public argument or ceremonial humiliation. It was a brief exchange beside a darkened library, where Harry issued a warning, and William responded with a promise that neither man would ever forget. By then, the brothers barely spoke without caution. Their conversations had been reduced to formal messages, travel arrangements, funeral plans, and carefully managed appearances in which every glance seemed measured. Charles tried to keep both sons within reach, calling Harry privately while urging William not to abandon hope. Yet the king, the reigning monarch and head of the royal family, could not erase the fear growing inside his eldest son. The future king had begun to believe that every confidential exchange carried a hidden risk, that words spoken in grief might later return as public testimony. The tension finally broke during a private Christmas gathering at Sandringham, the royal family's country estate in Norfolk. Harry waited until the corridor outside the library had emptied, then confronted his brother with a warning he had held back for months. Unless the family openly acknowledged what Meghan had endured, he said, he would tell the entire story in his own words. William did not answer immediately. He stepped closer, lowered his voice, and told the younger prince that he was threatening more than palace reputation. He was placing their shared memories, their mother's pain, and years of private trust before an audience that could never return them untouched. Once grief became evidence, the prince warned, brotherhood could not simply be restored when the cameras disappeared. Harry's anger sharpened when he noticed a senior courtier standing at the far end of the corridor. A courtier is a trusted member of the royal household who serves close to the monarch and senior family members. The younger man believed William had arranged a witness so the confrontation could later be recorded against him. His brother denied it at once, insisting the official's presence was accidental, but suspicion had already entered the space between them. Later that night, William sat alone and wrote a detailed account of every sentence exchanged. He dated the document, signed it, and placed it inside a secure household file used to preserve sensitive internal records. According to the palace aide's documented account, that statement became the first paper inside the sealed folder, later carried into Windsor. When William finally opened it before Harry, the younger prince understood the devastating truth. His brother had not arrived relying on memory or affection. He had arrived prepared to establish a record. The Windsor conversation was therefore never an ordinary reunion, and when the folder's seal was broken, years of restrained anger finally moved into the open. The confrontation began quietly. No voices were raised, no furniture was overturned, and no guard rushed toward the door. That restraint made the exchange more brutal. William sat opposite Harry with the sealed folder between them and spoke in the measured tone he used when anger had already passed beyond shouting. Then he delivered the sentence that changed the room. "You kept asking me to defend you privately, while you condemned me publicly." Rain pressed against the Windsor windows as untouched tea cooled on the small table between them. Neither brother reached for his cup. The room felt too narrow for everything they had carried inside it, and the folder had become a barrier more powerful than any locked door. William explained that it was not a legal threat. It was a written record of moments when private conversations appeared to resurface in interviews, productions, and accounts shared beyond the family. A legal threat is a formal warning that action may be taken through the courts, but the prince insisted this document served a different purpose. It preserved his version of events before memory itself became another battlefield. Harry did not open it. He pushed the folder back so sharply that it struck the edge of the table, then accused his brother of treating him like a security problem rather than family. His chair scraped against the floor as he stood, anger breaking through the control he had carried into Windsor. William remained seated. He looked up and delivered the words that wounded more deeply than shouting ever could. "You stopped being my brother in public, then demanded I remain your brother in private." Harry froze. For one terrible second, the younger prince looked less furious than betrayed, as though the sentence had confirmed every fear he brought into the room. Then he revealed his own defense. In a private recorded conversation later described to the palace source, Harry admitted that he had kept written accounts of royal meetings, including dates when he believed household aides had briefed damaging stories about Meghan, with approval from senior figures. The royal household refers to the officials and staff who support the monarch and senior members of the family. To Harry, those officials had not merely managed publicity, they had helped isolate his wife while William remained protected. The future king denied authorizing attacks against Meghan, but he refused to condemn every employee his brother named. Some accusations, he said, were assumptions rather than proof. That refusal settled something inside Harry. The institution still came first. Loyalty still stopped at the palace door. Yet the argument might have softened if William's position had been his alone. It was not. Before entering that room, another decision had already been made at the highest level of the household, and its pressure shaped every word he spoke. Behind William's controlled words stood not only personal anger, but the weight of a monarchy preparing to protect itself from one of its own. William may have entered the room alone, but he did not enter without pressure. In the days before the meeting, senior advisors warned that any informal promise to Harry could reshape palace strategy, security arrangements, and future family contact. Yet the most painful warning did not come from a lawyer or courtier. It came from King Charles, who sat with his eldest son in silence before admitting that the crown could survive scandal, but perhaps not endless betrayal within the family. William's choices now carried consequences far beyond one broken relationship. As the direct heir, the person next in line to inherit the throne, he was expected to protect the monarchy's future, preserve trust inside the household, and prevent private emotion from weakening public duty. Advisors feared that one careless promise could be interpreted as restored royal authority, renewed financial support, or privileged access that had never been formally approved. Charles understood the danger, but he also understood the grief. The king wanted his son speaking again, yet he had begun to fear that even a private concession could later become the center of another public dispute. Days before Windsor, the monarch sat in his study reading William's written summary of the Sandringham confrontation. He removed his glasses, placed the paper on the desk, and asked whether either brother still remembered how to speak, without preparing evidence against the other. The question struck harder than criticism. William admitted that part of him still wanted Harry back, the brother who once made him laugh when duty became unbearable, the man who understood the shadow of Diana without explanation. But the future king could not risk exposing Catherine, George, Charlotte, or Louis to another cycle of disclosures. His voice faltered when he confessed that he no longer knew which version of his younger brother would leave a private room: the wounded son seeking understanding, or the public figure prepared to tell the world what had been said. Charles did not order him to end the relationship. Instead, he drew a hard boundary. William must not offer restored royal duties, funding, security privileges, or renewed institutional access. Royal duties are official responsibilities performed on behalf of the monarch, and returning them would have carried political and public consequences far beyond forgiveness between siblings. Any healing had to begin personally, without rewards from the crown. A palace source later detailed the decision in a documented private account. The prince had been authorized to offer one concession: direct contact with Harry, without aides or secretaries controlling their words. But both men had to agree that every conversation would remain confidential unless they jointly chose otherwise. It was the narrowest bridge still standing. Harry's response would decide whether it held or collapsed. When William finally extended that narrow path back, Harry did not hear an invitation. He heard conditions, surveillance, and one final demand for surrender. For one brief moment, reconciliation seemed close enough to touch. William closed the folder, moved it aside, and offered his brother a direct line of communication. No secretaries, no palace intermediaries, no competing versions passed through advisors. But the offer carried one condition: nothing said between them could be used publicly without mutual consent. Harry stared at him for several seconds, then asked the question that transformed compromise into rejection. "Does that silence include what happened to my wife?" William explained the proposal without softening its limits. The brothers would speak privately once a month, contact each other directly during family emergencies, and rebuild trust slowly, without any promise that Harry would regain royal status. Royal status meant an official position, duties, privileges, and access connected to serving the crown. The future king believed he was separating family from institution, giving their bond room to survive before questions of security, money, or public roles entered the conversation. Harry heard something entirely different. He turned toward the window, folded his arms tightly, and fought to steady his breathing. To him, confidentiality did not sound like protection. It sounded like another rule designed to keep Meghan's suffering hidden while the people responsible remained untouched. The younger prince asked whether healing required him to forget what had happened simply because the palace found the truth uncomfortable. William answered that acknowledging pain was not the same as allowing every private disagreement to become public material. His brother shot back that enforced privacy had protected everyone except the people who were hurting. The words landed hard, because both men believed they were defending their families, yet each saw the other's defense as betrayal. Harry pressed further. Would William publicly correct damaging stories about Meghan? Would he stand before the same audience that had judged her and admit when the palace had allowed false claims to spread? The prince hesitated, then said he would intervene only when a story directly threatened family safety or constitutional integrity. Constitutional integrity meant protecting the rules, duties, and public trust that allowed the monarchy to function. To Harry, that answer exposed the limit of everything being offered. His wife's pain mattered only when it endangered the institution. The negotiation ended there. The younger man reached into his wallet, removed a small card carrying William's private telephone number, and placed it beside the sealed folder. Access without loyalty, he said, meant nothing. Then he turned toward the door, carrying the cold certainty that reconciliation had been offered only on terms he could never accept. William watched him leave the table, but before Harry could cross the room, the future king spoke again. This time there was no accusation, no warning, and no language of duty. There was only a confession so personal that his brother stopped without turning around. The meeting had reached its apparent ending, yet William's last confession created the first honest silence the brothers had shared in years. Harry's hand was already on the door when William finally abandoned the language of duty. He did not mention the crown, advisors, interviews, or conditions. Instead, he said that every public attack made him feel as though he were losing his mother and his brother at the same time. Harry stopped but did not turn around. For several seconds, the only sound was the clock behind them. The argument over, the truth finally beginning. William admitted that control had become his way of surviving. If he could guard every private memory, measure every response, and keep family pain behind closed doors, then perhaps the past could not be taken from them again. The future king was no longer speaking as an heir, the person expected to inherit the throne. He was speaking as a son who feared that the most painful parts of Diana's life would become material, owned by strangers. Harry slowly turned back. The younger prince said he had never wanted to steal their mother's memory or claim her suffering as his alone. He wanted the freedom to explain why he had refused to repeat her life, trapped between public attention, private isolation, and a family that believed silence could solve pain. William answered that when his brother left royal duties, he felt abandoned at the moment responsibility was becoming heaviest. Harry replied that he had expected the one person who understood their childhood to recognize why staying had become unbearable. The words did not erase the anger, but they changed its shape. For the first time, neither man was arguing about access, money, interviews, or palace rules. They were grieving different versions of the same loss. Harry then asked the question he had carried through every accusation. Had William ever defended Meghan when no one was watching? The prince hesitated so long that the silence nearly became an answer. Then he admitted that he had challenged several household decisions in private, questioned how certain stories were handled, and pushed back when he believed pressure on her had gone too far. The royal household, the network of advisors and staff supporting senior family members, had resisted some of those concerns. Yet William had refused to confront the system publicly because he feared destabilizing the family and weakening the monarchy during a dangerous period. The admission did not heal the rupture. It did something quieter. Harry finally understood that his brother's silence had not been complete indifference. It had been a moral compromise shaped by fear, duty, and choices the younger man could never accept. They left without an embrace. But as Harry reached for his coat, William quietly slipped the private contact card back into its pocket. Neither brother mentioned the gesture. Soon, however, that tiny act would carry consequences far beyond the room. They left Windsor separately, but the smallest private gesture would become the clue around which the palace, the press, and the public built an entirely new story. By sunrise, the private meeting was no longer private. The palace issued no statement. Yet details moved through London with extraordinary speed: the sealed folder, the rejected embrace, and Harry's silent departure. What had been a family reckoning became a national spectacle. But one image captured the public mood more powerfully than every headline: a photograph of Harry leaving Windsor alone, his hand pressed against the coat pocket where William had secretly returned the card. Inside the palace, staff members received a firm instruction: confirm nothing, deny nothing, and offer no private guidance to journalists. Senior aides compared timelines, telephone records, and written accounts, desperate to discover how details from a room without witnesses had escaped. A palace briefing is information shared by royal staff with the press, formally or privately, and even the suspicion of one mattered because it could destroy whatever trust remained between the brothers. The leak turned private grief into a public argument about loyalty, royal duty, and whether reconciliation could survive when every gesture became material for strangers. William saw the first reports during breakfast. The future king read 2 paragraphs, set down his cup, and asked the aide beside him to leave. His first fear was not the damage to the crown, it was that Harry would believe he had authorized the story, using the meeting to present himself as the patient brother and the younger prince as the man who rejected peace. Across the world in California, Harry studied the same coverage beside Meghan. She watched his expression change as the returned card was described as calculated palace symbolism rather than a private gesture. The younger prince looked shaken because the one moment he had not expected anyone to know had already been turned into strategy. Meghan asked whether William could have leaked it. Harry did not answer, and his silence revealed how fragile the understanding created at Windsor remained. The London Herald gave the story its defining public moment. Its front page showed Windsor's closed gate beneath the words, "Brothers behind the door. One last chance, one final wound." By midday, a crowd had gathered outside Windsor Castle, one of the monarch's official residences and a powerful symbol of royal continuity. An elderly woman stepped forward and placed 2 white roses against the gate. One carried William's name, the other carried Harry's. That simple act captured a nation unwilling to choose only one wounded brother. Yet public sympathy could not decide what the meeting had meant. The leak forced both men toward one last choice: allow headlines to define their final private conversation forever, or agree between themselves on the truth they would carry from it. With their pain now transformed into public mythology, William and Harry faced a final choice that would determine whether the meeting represented hatred, failure, or something more complicated. The last private meeting between William and Harry did not end with forgiveness. There was no embrace at the door, no promise that the old brotherhood would return, and no miraculous repair of years of damage. Yet calling the meeting a complete failure would miss its deepest meaning. For the first time, both men left knowing exactly what the other feared, what the other resented, and why neither could simply surrender without betraying the life he had chosen. Harry did not regain an official royal role, and William did not offer the public apology his younger brother had wanted. No formal agreement was reached over future disclosures, security, or palace access. Palace access meant permission to enter protected royal residences and participate in private family arrangements, privileges that could not be restored through emotion alone. The practical result was almost nothing. The personal result was far more important. Both men accepted that one conversation could not rebuild the closeness they once shared. Any relationship between them would have to become smaller, slower, and separate from negotiations involving the crown. After the details of the meeting leaked, William sent Harry a brief private message. He did not defend the palace or blame the press. He wrote only that he had not authorized the disclosure. The younger prince stared at the words before answering, with 4 that carried more weight than an apology. "I believe you this time." William read the reply alone. He then took the unopened family photograph left after their meeting and placed it beside his desk, instead of returning it to storage. The future king was not pretending the past could be recovered. He was accepting that the brotherhood inside that photograph had existed, mattered, and ended in a form neither man had wanted. In a documented private interview, the palace insider delivered the final revelation. The brothers never met alone in person again after Windsor. Yet the contact card quietly returned to Harry was not discarded. They used that private number for limited messages concerning Charles, family emergencies, and their children. Their bond survived not as intimacy, but as a narrow line neither man chose to cut. William protected his constitutional future, the duties and limits attached to becoming king, while Harry protected the independent life he had built beyond palace control. Neither prince won, neither fully apologized. The meeting ended their old brotherhood, but it also ended the belief that either man acted from simple cruelty. Each finally understood that the other had been shaped by grief, fear, and a desperate need to protect his family. That recognition did not create reconciliation. It prevented estrangement from becoming hatred. The Windsor door closed on the brothers they had once been. But the final message between them proved that beneath the crown, the anger, and the distance, one fragile thread of family remained. And for William and Harry, that was the only resolution still possible. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.